here comes another video on what I can only describe as the domestic middleweight love triangle between Billy Joe Saunders, Andy Lee and your man Chris Eubank Jr. First and foremost, I want to thank Greg, who's a subscriber of the channel, for emailing me about this, bringing it to my attention. Apparently there was an article in the Daily Mail today, which I didn't purchase, so I didn't read. It related to Andy Lee having a shoulder injury, having to postpone his mandatory fight against Billy Joe Saunders, and Billy Joe potentially getting in a rematch in the summer with Chris Eubank Jr. I did read on Boxing Scene that if Andy Lee is injured and cannot fight Billy Joe will fight for like a WBO regular or WBO interim type belt in Andy Lee's absence, and there would be a list of available opponents. Now I would imagine with the sanctioning fees that are involved here, if Billy Joe really pushed hard to get Chris Eubank Jr. In as an opponent for the WBO interim, it may not be beyond the realms of possibility that those two guys could fight in what is deemed as a unification match for Chris Eubank Jr.'s belt and for the WBO interim. I must say that would, in my mind, go down as the least credible unification match in the history of boxing. You know, two interim champions fighting. Having said that, you know, I'd care less about the titles, I'd care less about the unification, and I'd care more about watching a big scrap. Now, let's talk conspiracy for one moment. I'm not saying that Andy Lee isn't injured. I want to make that clear. I'm not making any allegations here. What I am saying is that for Andy Lee, there must be more money in facing Peter Quillen in a rematch than fighting Billy Joe Saunders. It's arguable for Billy Joe Saunders there must be more money in facing Chris Eubank Jr. in a rematch than facing Andy Lee. What I'm getting at is, does it not work best for both parties, Billy Joe and Andy Lee, if they go down the rematch route? I mean, put simply, Chris Eubank versus Billy Joe is a bigger fight domestically than Billy Joe Andy Lee. And with Peter Quillen being in the States, having the almighty power and the almighty wallet of Al Heyman behind him, surely there's more money for Andy Lee in that matchup. What's more is both guys will be confident of winning their respective fights. You know, Andy Lee won the majority of the last rounds against Peter Quillen. He'll think he's worked Quillen out. He will probably back himself, having had the experience and the in-ring exposure to Quillen, that in another 12-round clash he could get the job done. He dropped Quillen, let's not forget. Billy Joe will clearly be confident of repeating his win against Chris Eubank Jr. So perhaps they're thinking, why not take the two big paydays in front of them, Quillen and Chris Eubank Jr., and then still have the big Billy Joe versus Andy Lee fight available after those two matchups. You know, and if one of them loses, it's not the worst case. Andy Lee versus Chris Eubank Jr. is still a big fight. Billy Joe Saunders versus Peter Quillen is potentially still a big fight. You know, it's not a disaster even if one of them loses. So I think potentially it makes more sense for them to go down this route. Now, I'm a huge fan of Billy Joe Saunders. Huge fan. I've been following him for a long time. But what I would say is he's a guy who's taken step-aside money twice now. He's ignored the chance to fight both Hassan N'Dam and Andy Lee in fights where I'd have made him a favourite to win a world championship. He's a guy who's made it very clear that he's in boxing largely for the money. Now, with that track record in mind, with the fact that finance is clearly a motivator for Billy Joe, would he perhaps be inclined to consider fighting Chris Eubank Jr. ahead of Andy Lee, should that option be available for him? I would suggest that Billy Joe's already indicated that that would be the case when he told Frank Warren that he'd have to fight in the summer if Frank doubled his purse. You know, Now, realistically, with the hype that this fight's getting, and with the date range it could be looking at, yeah, we could be talking about a stadium fight. We could be talking about a fight at a football ground in London. Yeah, we could be talking about a fight here that does 30,000 tickets. Maybe at West Ham. I was at H's Raw at West Ham. Maybe Frank Warren could organise another show there. Try and flog 30,000, 35,000 seats, something like that. It'd be interesting. What I'm getting at is, I hope Andy Lee's not badly injured. I like Andy Lee, and I hope he can stay active, and I hope he can get paydays that he deserves after the career he's had. But regardless of whether Andy Lee is injured or not, I think that Chris Eubank Jr. versus Billy Joe could be close to happening again. I think the money in it is too much for Billy Joe to turn down for what he would consider an easy fight. And I think he's confident that Andy Lee, Peter Quillen winner, if there is a rematch, or just Andy Lee if there's not a rematch, will still be there for him in the future. It's an interesting set of circumstances. Right now, I must be honest, and people think I'm blind crazy saying something like this. If I have to rank the boxers 1 to 4 who we've been discussing, I think Billy Joe Saunders is the top. Alright, Billy Joe the top, Quillen second, Eubank Jr. third, Andy Lee fourth. I know people think I hate on Andy Lee. I don't. I'm actually an Andy Lee fan. I followed him from the start. I like his story. I like his style of fighting. But in my opinion, he's not a genuine middleweight. For my opinion, he's too easy to outbox. And he can be hurt in fights. You know. For me, Billy Joe is the best technician, the best combination puncher, the best mover out of all of them. Peter Quillen is probably the biggest puncher out of all of them. Chris Eubank Jr. is probably the most athletic and the most durable. Whereas Andy Lee's probably got the biggest heart. But that's how I rate it. Billy Joe, Peter Quillen, Chris Eubanks, and then Andy Lee last. I must say, and people may think that I'm being ridiculous here, but in terms of who's at the top of the middleweight division right now, and I'm talking here talent-wise, potential-wise, as opposed to resume-wise, clearly someone like Daniel Gill has a better resume than Billy Joe Saunders. But in terms of who I think is at the top of the middleweight division, Golovkin is number 1. And then for me, the next guys, in no particular order, are Njikum, Lemieux, Quillen, Saunders, Danny Jacobs. I'd like to see Jorge Sebastian Hyland fight another decent opponent as well. But what I'm getting at is these guys in this love triangle, the Eubank, Lee, Saunders. I think I'm throwing Quillen there as well. I think they're 1 fight, maybe 2 fights away from being the number 2 man in the division. I think all of them probably want to stay clear of Gennady Golovkin. Funnily enough, Saunders is probably the guy I think has the best chance of beating Golovkin. However, Saunders has repeatedly said he thinks Golovkin will beat him in a fight. So, you know, when your fighter doesn't fancy it, how can you back him to win? It's actually something I don't like about Saunders, is the fact that he's kept saying that. But regardless, I'm sort of rambling here. My point is, Eubank Jr. versus Billy Joe could be closer than we initially thought. I could see it happening this summer. I could see it happening at West Ham. Andy Lee, supposedly injured. Hope the champion gets better soon. Be interesting to see what comes out of that. Will Andy Lee suddenly re-emerge like a phoenix for a Peter Quillen rematch? Or will he be injured again and fight later on in the year versus the winner of Eubank Jr. versus Billy Joe? Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the middleweight division. Is there a conspiracy here? I'm always keen to discuss. Many thanks for watching.